Most people wait until something's wrong to see a doctor. You are not most people. I'm Kevin White. After more than 20 years as an emergency physician, I realized the best medicine is not waiting for the crash. It's helping people stay on the road. This is The Daily Apple, a podcast about living better, longer. Every episode gives you something you can use this week. A smarter habit, a clearer path, or maybe just a new way to think about your health. Because engaged patients are the best patients, and your best years do not have to be behind you. Let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody, to the Daily Apple. Today I have Emma Payne, who is the CEO of HealthText.com and doing some great work. And we're going to talk about grief, death, dying, why you should care about that, how it affects longevity and overall health span and lifespan. And we're going to get into help text. We're going to get into longevity text later. And I'm just excited to have you here, Emma.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. They're tough topics to talk about, I know.
Yeah,
Thanks
they
for inviting
are.
me.
You can't really pay attention to longevity, health span, lifespan without, if you're not going through it now, you will in the future. And to have some tools in the toolkit to deal with it is extremely helpful. And you can come out the other side.
Couldn't agree more.
Actually.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this as we were going to have you on the podcast. It's like everybody needs to think about it because it's going to happen. Most people don't. And when it happens, they have no idea how to deal with it. I mean, it's hard enough already, but if you've got some sort of tools in your mindset, then, that's a good thing.
I think
Right.
it's like most things, information is power. If you know even a little bit about grief, you can optimize for it when it happens because it will. And you can feel a little more ready and better equipped. But
Yeah.
generally, that's not what happens. We put it out of our minds, and then someone dies, and then we collapse and have no idea what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you get into this space? Not everyone in high school and college and think I'm going to go into death and bereavement. I'm going to deal with that. How did you plop down in this hole?
Yeah, like most people in the death and bereavement space, there's a difficult story at the origin. But prior to
Yeah.
all of that, I had spent 20 years doing web and mobile solutions for lots of different things, like youth voter registration, suicide prevention, caregiver coordination. So I had pretty deep web and mobile roots. My first web company was pre Netscape.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'd been so
Okay.
I'd been in it from the get-go, and my grad work was all in tech policy. So I was kicking along with my web and mobile career, and then my husband died by suicide, which was what you would imagine as completely shocking and upending as anything you could imagine. And I had the experience that now I see many, many people have had, which is nobody knows what to say. People actually stay away. It's incredibly isolating. It's impossible to find a therapist with expertise in what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And it's a lonely, really gut wrenching time. I was actually on a plane ride back from a funeral a decade after he died. And at the funeral, I had seen people who I hadn't seen since he died. So I heard lots of, I'm so sorry I didn't reach out back then. I didn't
Right.
know what to say.
Right.
And so on the plane ride, I just thought, that is crazy. So I've
Mhm.
spent 10 years not hearing from people, and 100 people through the pub night and everything at this friend's funeral had spent that same time feeling embarrassed that they hadn't reached out,
Mhm.
feeling guilty. Right. So it had been isolating for me, it had been upsetting for them, and it seemed solvable. So on the plane ride, I just thought, okay, well, what do I know from my work career to this point that I could do to make grief support just really accessible and easy and lower the stigma and not only help the grieving person, but why don't we also help the friends, family, managers
Mhm.
do want to help, but they just truly don't know how.
Mhm.
So on my plane ride home, I actually mapped out what became the help text platform. So that was 2015, launched the company and quit my full-time job and sold my house and all the crazy things that
Mhm.
entrepreneurs do in
Yeah.
2018. And now we're supporting grievers in 57 countries, all
Mhm.
50 states. Um, really proud of it.
So that just stemmed 10 years later. you were going for a was this some event or a
It was a
funeral or what?
funeral. I was going to a friend's funeral, and the friend who had died was a
Yeah,
friend and second cousin of my husband. So it was just like a lot of the same people were there.
right,
People who I hadn't heard from
right.
were then at this event 10 years later. And I mean, um, the friend had asked me to deliver a eulogy for him, which of course I agreed to do. He was dying. It was my first time that I'd been with someone as they died. And
Mm,
really, I think it was a huge gift from him,
mhm.
because otherwise I would have just kept going thinking that people didn't care. Or because Barry, my husband, died by suicide, I got pretty good at inventing reasons why people might not be reaching out, right? They blame
Right,
me, they think it's my fault, something. But instead, I had this experience of literally over 100 people saying, I'm so sorry I didn't reach out. I didn't know what to do.
right.
Like that, it was that stark.
Yeah,
And that just seemed crazy, right? In this world of information, I mean, there's a whole field of thanatology, is the study of death, dying, and bereavement. There are bereavement experts and coordinators across the country and around the world with deep expertise in this field, just like every other field has scientists and experts and people with lots of letters after their names that know about this space. So when I first thought about help text, I thought of it, and I still do, like, it's not rocket science.
right.
We're taking the best wisdom in the world from lots of different experts,
Mhm,
curating it down to make it super digestible, personalizing it based on your loss. So if your husband has died by suicide, different texts than if your child was stillborn, for example.
mhm,
And we're just going to text you,
mhm,
because when people are grieving, they are not picking up whole books and reading them. They
mhm.
are overwhelmed and exhausted. So it's like, what's the most digestible, low threshold way to get expert wisdom into people's hands when they need it? So that's what we do. We take hundreds of experts, we get these beautiful little gems, some of the most, every time we put a new text into the system, I think some version of, wow, I wish someone said that to me back
Right,
then,
right.
and text it to people all around the world every day.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, it's incredibly effective. We were
Mhm.
first in the world to have research published on grief informed texting, and we have a 95% acceptability rate, which is kind of bonkers, even higher with men. So men make up about 20% of our user base. They're less likely to sign up,
Right.
although it was 11% a year ago. So it's getting better.
Uh,
So they're less likely to sign up, but when they do, they love it the most. And I think it's
sure.
low stigma, totally discreet,
Mhm.
pragmatic. Just tell me what I need to know. Give me the science, give me the info to just help me deal with the fact that my wife is not sitting across from me at dinner. Right?
Right.
It's a staggering physical and mental experience to lose someone
Mhm.
that you love.
'Cause that you'd mentioned that word thanatology, kinda hit on that just briefly. I mean, is that the study of
Death, dying, and bereavement.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's a whole field of study, and it's really, I feel very lucky to have been working in this space now for 7 years. I'm lucky to have a team that has the clinical credentials that I don't,
Right.
but also to work with lots of experts who have this wisdom. And I'm like, I mean, death, dying, and bereavement people are the best humans on earth. They
Uh-huh.
have deep, deep, deep empathy and wisdom, but they're
Sure.
also kind of no nonsense, right?
Uh-huh.
They're also like, life is short, let's go. What do we need to do next? Just
Really?
really, yeah, like living life to the fullest. So they know a thing or two, which I think is why the longevity piece is now interesting. But death people know a thing or two about living. You
Yeah.
don't sit bedside with 1,000 people at the end of their life without thinking very deeply about how you spend your own life.
That's it's yeah, as you say that, I think about, my time in the hospital when I was working and some of the events that would happen as you would leave the hospital and go into your daily life. You see life through a different lens. You look at your family, your kids, and everything's has a different kind of flavor to it,
Hmm.
which makes it better, really, because you appreciate some of those things.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's right.
So, talk about grief, losing somebody, how that affects our longevity, our health in the future, like, a spouse. Kind of, mention some of the statistics on that. I think that's really important for people to kind of
Yeah.
understand and
Yeah.
why they
I
would
mean,
care.
it's logical, but at the same time, completely ignored in all healthcare
Sure.
insurance realms and so on, right? You can't, there's no reimbursement code for bereavement, even though when we are grieving, we are at increased risk for everything:
Yeah.
depression,
Hmm.
anxiety, substance misuse, sleep disruption. So those are all things you might expect. You're
Hmm.
also at like a 1.4 times as likely to get a type 2 diabetes diagnosis.
Hmm.
Cancer goes up. Heart
Hmm.
events. Within the immediate aftermath of a spouse's death, heart events are, I forget what the number, like 200 times higher, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So there's inflammation is happening. You're under huge amount of stress.
Yeah.
So really, especially in this first 6 months of acute grief, the physical vulnerability is very, very high, as well as mental.
Hmm.
But yet, most organizations are ill equipped to provide support in that first 6 months. In fact, a lot of bereavement counselors will wait until after that, until the person has sort of settled down and made it through the acute phase in order to benefit from some therapy sessions, for example. But we have massive uptake in the first 6 months. 2/3 of our subscribers come then, a third in the first couple of months. People are in a huge amount of pain,
Hmm.
physically and mentally. They're at enormous risk for all kinds of mortality and morbidity outcomes.
Hmm.
And they are desperate to have anybody willing to talk to them about what's their reality. We might all find it hard to talk about it, but it's your reality when it's happening.
Right. Right.
So you need an outlet and information and someone to use your dad's name
Hmm.
at the time that, in fact, we all suddenly stop talking about your dad. So
Yeah.
all you're doing is thinking about your dad, but
Hmm.
everybody else is nervous and awkward and doesn't want to mention your dad.
Yeah.
So even that kind of like talking about him, bringing him into the conversation. Oh my gosh, I really loved it when he took us to that barbecue last year, right?
Yeah.
It makes the griever feel better. And our texts are being sent to the griever, so giving them the actual wisdom, thanatology wisdom, current modes of working through grief. But we're also texting your best friend and your husband and your boss and so on, so that they can remember or
Hmm.
be coached about how to talk about your dad's barbecue last year.
Really? So the help text goes out to other people as well outside of,
Yeah,
the person signing up for it. There are other people that are
yeah,
included in that to kind of make
yeah.
it more of a community effort.
It's my favorite thing about help text. I
Really?
mean, it's an option. You don't have to
Yeah.
invite friends and family, and obviously
Yeah.
they have to opt in and agree. And we only text them once a week, so it's pretty low lift to get a text once a week with
Yeah.
suggestions for how to help your friend or partner, as well as we'll send extra texts on holidays and anniversaries and so on.
Uh-huh.
But I have yet to meet anybody in my 8 years in this space who doesn't wish that their boyfriend, mom, manager understood a little bit more of what they're going through, or remembered that it's the anniversary of when your baby was stillborn, right? We want that community support from each other, and I think it's a big part of what helps us to navigate grief is to
Yeah.
just have a few people that will be there with us.
Yeah. How do you, I mean, what would you say to, so like earlier this year, my, son had a close, a friend and who had passed away kind of tragically, and just a wonderful, wonderful family. How do you, as somebody in the periphery of that, and you've alluded to this before, how do you manage that? What would you say to people? A lot of times we don't know what to do, so we don't do anything, right? We don't send the text or whatever, or send, hey, just thinking about you or whatever. What advice would you give to somebody in the periphery who's a friend? Like you'd mentioned that before, like, you went back for a funeral 10 years later and people are kind of apologizing to you like, oh my gosh, it's you. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. Is it just send the dang text, make the call, whatever, get off, just make it happen?
I mean, doing nothing is not the right plan. That's for
Right.
sure.
Right.
So this is what we actually text people, and the supporters
Yeah.
just come just come back with like relief and gratitude usually. Like, oh,
Yeah.
thanks for telling me what to do. Oh, okay, I didn't know tomorrow was his birthday. Thanks for telling
Uh,
me, giving me a suggestion. Oh, but the two kind of main things I would say are, first of all, it is not your job to take away the
mhm,
pain that this family is feeling whose son has died, right? You can't, if you go into the conversation thinking that you're somehow going to make them feel better or in
mhm,
any way alleviate the pain, you aren't. So just kind of remove that pressure entirely. You cannot. They're in the most pain that they've ever been in.
Right.
So your decision is simply to be courageous enough to sit with them in that
Mm-hmm.
pain
Mm-hmm.
and be there for it, whatever it unfolds. You're not going to direct the conversation. So in some ways, I think this just relieves pressure for people. Like,
Yeah.
it's not about, and I know we like to solve other people's problems, right? But this,
Yeah.
in this scenario, you're not going to. So you're not going to go in and share your own story of grief or try and somehow, oh, they're in a better place, right? All of that goes away. Just be there to be present
Yeah.
because your absence is hurtful. So it really can be, I just, I'm feeling for you and let me just swing by and drop off some food, or I'm thinking about Danny, or
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Which leads to the second thing, which is to please find a way to say their name and remember them,
Mm-hmm.
because that family needs to know that, I don't know what the person's
Mm-hmm.
name is, but let's say Danny is our fictitious deceased. They need to know that Danny mattered to, and that he'll be remembered
Yeah.
and how awesome he was, right? So stories about when your kids were little and when they did that thing and how precocious he was.
Yeah.
It's kind of surprising that once you flex the muscle, you will find it gets easier and easier. And then instead of having to be awkward for 10 years,
Yeah.
you will be able to be there when they're having a celebration for his first like birthday that he's going to miss, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
Danny's always going to exist for them. So you kind of being part of keeping him alive and present and being comfortable talking about him is a huge gift, but it's where we often fall flat as
Yeah.
supporters. We often do the opposite.
Yeah.
Like,
We
oh, I don't want
do.
to bring him up. I don't want to bring up Danny. That might really upset him. Well, you know what? They're thinking about Danny all day and every day.
Yeah.
You're not going to bring him up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's already happening. So what
He's
is?
up.
Yeah. So I mean, speaking of grief, so my mother-in-law, great person, salt of the earth. She died a few years back in 4 years ago now, I think. Yeah.
What was her
Almost.
name?
Awela.
Awela.
Awela. Yeah. No, she was fantastic. Just can't say enough of great, wonderful things about this woman. But my father-in-law, who's one of the smart, I mean, just wise, emotionally intelligent men that I know, just grieved really well with his daughters, and they were talking all the time, and it was I mean, always in the conversation and everything. So yeah, it was hard, but they did sit with it together a lot and everything that you're saying. So, and not everyone does that, but anyways, they still live life and all that. And she's always a part of the conversation and, you know, but
That's
there's not many, yeah, there's not a lot of,
it's
yeah, it's a hard thing to maneuver, but
it's not always that way, but it sounds like they did a really perfect job of
yeah,
there's I mean, there's about 20 current theoretical models of bereavement, but some of the original tasks of mourning were done decades ago by a guy named Warden. And I still think that they hold true. And you have to first acknowledge the death,
hmm
one. And
hmm
if you are, training a chatbot to still pretend to be your mom and so on, you're probably not quite doing
yeah,
that
I've
first.
heard you talk about this
That
before. I had
first
no
part.
idea how insane
Oh,
that
yeah.
is.
So first of all, you have to actually acknowledge that they're
Yeah,
dead, right?
yeah,
And that's harder than it sounds. It sounds obvious when it's not you, but it's actually it's hard. And
yeah,
then number two, you have to actually process the pain. And you can do that that can be trail running. It doesn't have to be therapy. For some people, it's therapy. For some people, it's trail running. For some reason, for some people, it's talking to their friends, whichever. But there's pain that needs to be processed somehow, whichever way works for you. The
What's a
third
common
task,
way for people to process that you would say
people do
correctly?
journaling, people do therapy, people for
Yeah,
it's exercise, people it's a group beer night that they go to. And in the case of Abuela's, in the case of your father-in-law, it sounds like he had his daughters
yeah,
as a really good way to sit and actually process the pain. So it sounds as if he did each of these
yeah,
things and he had the intuition and the support around him to do that. And then the third task is to adapt. And people find this hard. So if you were sitting with a grief therapist or expert, they'd be looking to see if you accepted that dinner invitation,
hmm
um, right? That you maybe didn't completely want to go and do without your wife, but did. Did you do it? Have you found
Yeah.
new things? Are you adjusting to the new truth of your life? And then the fourth thing is about in finding an enduring connection with the person that's gone. And now we call it continuing bonds. But I really love this one. It sounds as though, and this is kind of what we're talking about before, it's not about moving on, it's about honoring Awela and
Yeah.
Danny and having them in your life in some kind of meaningful way over time. So for some people, that's planting a tree or a garden. For some people, it's having the necklace around their neck. For some people,
Hmm.
that's donating to a charity that is meaningful, was meaningful to that person. But people's just because the person's died doesn't mean that our relationship with them ceases.
Yeah.
We still think about them all the time. So finding that enduring connection is part of what it takes to have a healthy grieving experience. It sounds
So
like your
say more
father-in-law
about
did all
that.
those
Like,
things.
so enduring connection. Explain that a little bit more.
So it's like if you put something under the rug and never try to mention it, that's
Yeah.
probably not going to.
That's my family's way of dealing with stuff. Let's just
It's
not
a
talk
lot of
about it.
people's.
It's
Yeah,
just
it's a
sweep that
lot
under the
of.
rug and never happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more like move on.
Hmm.
I mean, at my husband's funeral, and we'd been together since I was 19, right? So he was my whole adult life at this point. But
Wow.
I had people say things like, well, just don't think about it. Just don't do things that remind you of him.
People said that to you?
Yeah.
We're so
And at the
screwed up as
time, I
people.
remember thinking, oh, okay, so like seeing the color blue, or I don't
Yeah.
know, brushing my teeth, or
Breathing oxygen.
breathing oxygen,
Yeah.
um, or just try to plunge yourself into work, or we do with good intention suggest to grievers that they should push it down, move on. Oh, you'll meet someone new. Oh, you have other children, etc. Right? But wardens' tasks, and really anybody in the thanatology field would understand that that's not going to be a healthy path forward. That's going to increase your likelihood of prolonged grief disorder and so on.
Mhm.
So better is to process the pain, find some ways that you are going to honor this person in your life. This can be as simple as a picture that you have up, or something that they painted, or a donation that you make to a charity, or just
Mhm.
keep them with you because they're still part of you.
Mhm.
When your mom dies, she's still part of all decisions that you make and things you think about, and right. So it's more like honoring them and finding a way that just feels nice to keep them close.
I've heard you talk about this before too, and I want to talk about brain plasticity with the grief process because
Mm-hmm.
you can how if done right or and there's like you've said before, there's no right way, but really processing it and going through some of these steps in an appropriate way in connection with others, you can come out the other side pretty strong and pretty resilient, which is kind of cool, which is kind of the silver lining in some of this that I've thought about. But I mean, explain that. I never knew anything about that up until I've heard you speak on that.
Yeah, I knew very little about neuroscience until about 5 years ago. We started working with a neuroscientist named Mary Frances O'Connor,
Yeah,
and she wrote a book called The Grieving Brain. And we crafted a whole text series with really amazing tidbits from The Grieving Brain, which we now text out to grievers. And then earlier this year, she wrote The Grieving Body. So she's really one of the leading experts when it comes to the impact of grief on the brain and on the body. And her texts are very popular. They're especially popular with men. Men like the science of it, right? So
yeah,
things like the brain is a predictive machine. So if you are used to your wife standing at the end of the pool and passing you a towel when you come out from swimming laps, and you still think she's going to be there every time you get out of the pool, even though you know she's not, it doesn't mean you're going crazy. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're grieving correctly. It just means that your brain is predicting that she'll be there, and it takes some time to rewire. So I've actually read that in grief, our brains are the most plastic that they
hmm
will have been since childhood. And that because connection is severed, we're rewiring as quickly as we can, right? We're trying to catch up with the fact that our wife's not going to be at the end of the pool to pass the towel. But at the same time, everything is firing. And so you're right. Like there's something kind of cool about it. And, post traumatic growth People talk about how you learn in a way that you haven't learned for a long time when this
Yeah.
happens to you. It's painful, but woof, you are you have a capacity for changing and learning.
Mhm.
We see, I mean, we're just sending text, so we often get skepticism from people saying, there's no way something as simple as text messages can help with something as complicated as grief. But yet, what comes back all day and every day is, I don't know how you knew this is what I'd be feeling today. I'm going to try this. Oh, this is exactly what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
It's because, I mean, partly it's because we're doing a good job typing our messages, but it's not just that, right?
Yeah.
Partly it's that our subscribers' brains are open and they need to be hearing these different things that come back so it resonates. I think because their brains are plastic, because they're open to new information in a way that they might not have been otherwise. I mean, even that we're having this conversation, people can go about their lives without thinking about or imagining. How often do you hear people say, I just can't imagine, right?
Sure. All the
Someone's
time.
child dies tragically. Oh my gosh, I just can't imagine.
Yeah.
We don't want to. The truth is you can, you just don't want to. And
Right.
if you imagine it, then that's the kind of severing of connection that forces your brain to need new inputs because it's just rewiring as quickly as it possibly can. And that does have some opportunity with it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And people do, it's not the cliche about the sky's bluer and taking better care of myself. It's you do learn things that impact you, and it can be quite powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, I love what you're doing. I think it's great. We've got another friend, one of my girls in my practice, her father-in-law just lost his wife, and
Oh,
yeah, and not gonna grieve well, not gonna handle it well. And she heard you speak on another
oh,
platform, with our mutual friend Matt Caberlin's
oh, nice.
podcast, which was great. And I'd recommend that to anybody listening to go back and hear that. But after she listened to that, she was like, "Okay, we signed him up for it, and thank you
Oh,
very
really?
much."
Oh, good.
Yeah, yeah, he's like a kind of an old Al Pacino kind of guy, very, yeah. So not a touchy feely dude by any stretch. So it's been pretty helpful so far. So,
No,
yeah,
I'm so glad. We do very, very, very well with widowed men,
yeah,
our Al Pacino types. We got a voicemail last week, someone who just responded and left a voicemail, and I was saying to my team, and we can't share it because it's,
yeah,
it's private, obviously.
sure,
But I actually welled up when I heard it, and then when I listened to it again, same. And I thought, if we had not a single ad or marketing for the rest of our lives, and all we did was share this voicemail with people, the company would explode because it's a elderly guy, southern accent. He's like powering through, right? He's like, I just want to make sure that you're going to keep sending these texts because I haven't had one since July 6th. It turns out that was completely normal, and he was going to get one later that day. He's like, I just haven't had one. I need you to keep sending them.
yeah,
You're doing such a beautiful job. It's the only thing that I've been getting since Pam died. And then his voice cracks, and really he just is pleading with us to make sure that this support continues because he needs it.
right,
And he's like a lot of grievers, which is that this is all they're doing.
yeah,
They don't have their daughters sitting with them. They aren't sure how to talk about it. No one's
mhm. Sitting with
mentioning
them. Nope.
sitting with them and just um, letting them be stoic if they want, or cry if they want, or,
Yeah,
you know, it's, yeah, it
wow,
works. So I'm really glad to hear your colleagues had that experience
yeah,
for her dad. That's great. Or her father-in-law.
yeah.
That's nice.
Well, I guess, yeah. So I'd recommend. How do people find that? Because I want to switch and I want to talk to this longevity text. That it's a whole new thing that you're launching in
I
next
know.
month
Very
in August
exciting.
of
Yep. Yeah, in a
2025.
couple weeks. Hmm.
There's nothing like this at all that I know of. But before we get that, is there anything else you want to add on that we haven't discussed on the grief texting help
Uh,
text? We haven't.
Well, maybe just that we do also offer support for other kinds of grief. So we have
Mm,
text support for after someone dies, but we also have a whole year of support for pet loss,
yeah,
pregnancy loss, anticipatory grief. So we have really beautiful text for caregivers, people who are caring for someone who is dying, that
yeah,
then transition to bereavement care. So help text has a whole range of supports available. Grief is where we began, and what we usually say is that the tougher it is, the better we are at it.
yeah.
Help
Yeah.
text for the tough stuff. But
You
yeah,
know,
thanks for
you alluded to something there, anticipatory grief, and you've
mhm.
talked about, and I guess we didn't even define grief in the beginning, but we probably should, and then talk about anticipatory grief because that's something that needs to be touched on because the anticipation of losing something, that something's coming, death can be
Yeah,
quick or slow, and it's a whole. There's all kinds of flavors to this
yeah,
deal. So, yeah, just
yeah.
comment on that.
Now I've sort of come to think of, I mean, the two sort of biggest losses I've experienced, one was sudden and traumatic, and the other was expected.
Yeah,
And after Barry's suicide, I thought, well, nothing could be worse than this. And then when my friend died of cancer, um, I had the other experience, which is like sitting with somebody in the journey to the end and watching how difficult it was for his boys and family. And so now I think, let's say for the sake of argument that all grief equals 100%. There's still a difference between how much of that grief you experienced before the person stops breathing and how
right,
much after. So even if it were all exactly the same, it might be that you spent years
right.
grieving the fact that your wife was going to die of cancer and that you were not going to have the future with her that you expected to have, and that you had to watch her lose her hair and have surgeries and on, right? All of this happened before you actually sat with her as she died. And then part two comes at you.
Mhm.
Whereas with a suicide or overdose or homicide or accident, there's none of this part. It's just the whole thing at once. So, yeah, anticipatory grief. We work with lots and lots of people with expertise here. So, I think we have 14 different experts who just focus on dementia and Alzheimer's, for example.
Right.
And when they write about the anticipatory grief that comes as you slowly lose your wife,
Yeah.
I just think it's so powerful. It's so beautiful. What can you control and do, and how can you care for yourself and care for them as this journey unfolds? So yeah, we have lots of support for anticipatory grief, and then when the person dies, they just transition to the grief support we've been talking about all along.
Right. Right. Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
yeah, that's a huge deal. I'm thinking of people that I know with, spouses with, cancer, pancreatic cancer and all this sort of stuff. And I
yeah,
know
and
by the stats,
pancreatic.
it's like, yeah, I think about it in time, how much time you have left. And anyway, yeah. And then Alzheimer's dementia or any kind of dementia is a whole new bag. But
Yeah. So we have lots of, so we began in grief, but we now actually have 6 different service lines, and I'm happy to make them all available for your listeners if you want on your,
yeah,
we
where do
set
they
up help
find?
text.
Yeah, yeah.
They go to helptext.com/Kevin White, and we'll just
Okay.
make them all available there. We also have support for healthcare workers experiencing burnout and fatigue. We have a health and well-being service that includes like discrete add-ons for things like depression,
Hmm.
divorce, job loss, all the things we grieve.
Okay.
So
They
yeah,
can
so
find all that through.
helptext.com/Kevin White, and we'll have all of those there. And then, of course, we'll have longevity text there
Yeah.
when that launches next month.
Yeah. So let's talk more about that. This longevity text. So this kind of was born out of a conversation you had with Matt Chamberlain, and it just kind of came
Yeah,
out of
we did
that.
not we did not see this coming, but I think what Matt and I share is a passion for pragmatism
Hmm.
and science-based,
Yeah.
clinically sound data getting
Yeah.
into people's hands in a way that is actionable and useful.
Hmm.
So, on the one hand, when I was on his pod, we had no thought of any of this. We were just talking about grief and loss, and his
Right.
dog had died, and he had received our texts, which is
Sure.
how I came to be on the pod. But afterwards, we realized, or we just thought, well, wait a minute, wouldn't the exact same platform do a beautiful job of sending clinically sound, science-based,
Hmm.
actionable, pragmatic longevity text straight to people's phones? And they
Yeah.
could tailor it based on the things that they're interested in. Okay, you're interested in supplements, check supplements. You are interested in dementia, okay, check that. So yeah, we've built it and it's very exciting. So longevity texts now exists
Yeah.
and people will be able to sign up and get longevity tips straight to their phone for as long as they want, with expertise from yourself and Matt and lots of other people in the longevity space who are chipping in to give us some really great
Yeah.
tidbits. And I think Matt says it right. There's a lot of bunk out there.
Hmm.
Same with grief, like the five stages of grief were never even a thing, or what if people do know something about grief, it tends to be incorrect and it's about the
Uh,
stages. So
uh,
even trying to kind of debunk that, send out actual fact-based things, but also text works well because it comes to you and you don't have to do anything, right? It just comes
yeah.
and reminds you to, hey, why don't you make sure you've got three different colors on your plate tonight?
Hmm. Hmm.
And then longevity text, we've done two. It's cool. We've got a generalist flow, so you can sign up as a generalist, or you can sign up for the deep dive. And so then you really get all kinds of deep dive longevity
Oh,
wisdom
okay.
straight to your phone.
So there's two layers to that.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see which
Yeah.
is the most popular with people. I think that text is very low threshold.
Hmm.
So people that might not pick up a huge book at the beginning might still say, yeah, that sounds actually kind of cool. You're going to send me text to help me live longer and improve my health span. Yeah, okay,
Right.
I can do that. And then as they get more into it, then they deep dive on hormones or they pick up the bigger book and really get into
Sure.
it. So I think we'll be very low threshold for generalists and then have this deep dive track for people who really want to know what the top longevity experts are paying attention to, which are the research
Hmm.
papers that they think is most salient, things like that.
Yeah. And what I like is the contributors you're working with. I mean, you're going with real science based,
Yeah, no mucking
it's going to be
around.
useful. Yeah, it's not going to be nonsense. So it's
Matt
going to be
Matt
useful.
has been curating and
Yeah.
inviting our experts, so it's all
Yeah.
people who are very, very credible, and just being careful to make sure we're sharing things that are science based and pragmatic
Hmm.
and the latest and
Yeah.
greatest. So it's exciting.
Yeah. It's I think it's fantastic. I mean, the more I thought about it, initially I was like, how does that work? But, I have patients here and, in our practice, and you might, we spend a lot of time with them and talking about, different things, but just having them being pinged with, little ideas to kind of help make that change. Cause, you talk to somebody, they may leave and may remember 10%, even though we send, emails and keep, communication open. But anyway,
In
I think
my
it's great.
in my recent neuroscience learning,
Yeah.
one of the things that I learned is about the dopamine lift we get when we receive a text message.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unlike when you get an email, unlike when you see alerts piling up in your apps, when
Hmm.
you get a text, you actually get a dopamine boost. It feels good.
Sure.
And when you get that dopamine boost, you feel cared for and your motivation increases. So we see on the grief and loss side and with our depression texts as well, I mean, we just see this incredible openness to actually doing the things that we suggest.
Hmm.
Okay, I'll try that today. Good idea. I'll give it a go. Motivation is up. Someone pinged it to, right? It's not the same as, oh, maybe I'll remember to go and do this thing tomorrow. It
Yeah.
just comes to you. It's a little nudge. It's a sort of welcome interruption almost.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that text is unique at motivating change. So, yeah, I mean, that's what Matt and I have been talking about too with longevity texts. If that's the case, then maybe we'll also see a measurable increase in behavior change, people actually doing
Hmm.
the things. It's one thing to know what you should be
Yeah.
doing, it's another thing to do it.
Yeah. I've, I joined some other one that, years ago, just on a whim, and I've just kept it. And it's just random, like almost motivational text. Maybe it's, Zen stuff or whatever, but there's something about having a little virus planted in your brain. I mean, you're gonna get it. Whatever we're all looking at We always, everyone scrolls and has a little garbage. The phone isn't going away. So why not utilize that to your benefit? And,
Right.
but yeah, I'm totally jazzed about this.
Yeah, I think text is really impactful. I think it's massively underutilized in all kinds of areas. It actually
Mhm.
shocks me. We publish data showing like our full year retention rate is 86%. So even though you can text stop anytime, people don't. At 6 months, it's 90%. Whereas app use is plummeting, and 3% of people open a mental health app that they installed 30 days ago.
Right.
So for 6 months later, 90% of people still to be choosing to get their text, or almost the same at a full year, just shows that I think the capacity of text, because it's low threshold, it makes you feel good. You don't need a Zoom connection. You don't have to, right? It just comes to you and that's it. It's
Yeah.
as easy as can be. So we'll see how that is with the longevity crowd, but hopefully lots of people will sign up and then we'll be getting lots of feedback and then we'll just keep tweaking as we go.
Yeah. That's great because there's just so many like apps. People have apps and apps and apps. Oh, do this app for this. I mean, I went to a new gym the other day to try out. Oh, you got to download this app. I'm like, I've got app fatigue. So this is
I'm the
awesome.
same.
I mean,
The first time I heard that stat, I was like, that can't be right. Like
yeah,
the 3% after 30 days. And then I actually looked at my phone.
yeah,
I was like, I don't even know what this is. I was just like, delete, delete. I have no idea what these things are because it's like you said, you go to one
yeah,
conference, you need
yeah.
one thing, something.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Every time you turn around, I got a gazillion apps. I'm a cyber hoarder. I don't get rid of stuff. I need to go
I mean,
through.
parking alone, how many parking apps can there possibly be?
Yeah.
Apparently a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Well, I think it's awesome. So this launches, so it's the end of July. This is launching next month, August
Yep. By
2025.
the time we air, we'll be live. So yeah,
Okay.
helptext.com/Kevin White. And the first
Okay.
choice on there will be longevity texts for anyone who wants to sign up. You can sign up
Okay.
just pay as you go month to month, or you can sign up and prepay for a year if you prefer.
Okay.
It's super flexible. I mean, there's no contract, there's nothing, no app to install, nothing to download. Takes
Yeah.
about like takes 3 minutes to sign up, and then you
Right.
get your first text right away, and then we'll just keep going until you tell us to stop.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, helptext.com/Kevin White. And they can rip it off. Yeah, I'm
Hopefully,
excited about what
sooner
you're
than later.
doing. And
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for being part of it and helping us craft some cool texts.
oh
And
yeah, yeah,
it's
it's gonna blow it. This is great. Well, is there anything else you'd like to talk about, Emma? Anything else to that we haven't hit on before I let you go?
no, I think we got it all. I'm glad you remembered
Okay.
about the plasticity piece and also
Yeah,
the actual health outcomes associated with bereavement.
yeah,
It's not about wanting to be a downer,
right.
right? It's just that if you have lived a if you're living a good life, then you
Yeah,
have social connection.
hmm,
So, and if you live a long life, you will lose some people.
yeah,
So it's sort of back to this pragmatic thing. Like there are things that you can do to equip yourself for this thing that will happen if you're living a good life and if you live a long life,
yeah,
this will happen to you. It'll happen to you many times. And
yeah,
you can optimize for it. You can take advantage of that plasticity
hmm,
and grow from it. And you also can navigate it in a way that keeps you healthy.
hmm.
And otherwise, it's unfortunately a time that has a lot of risk and negative outcomes. So I think that's the main message. And in a way, that's the connection between the grief part and the longevity part, right?
Yeah, yeah. If you can't, yeah, true. Yeah, you can't really think about longevity. You've got to, this is a part of it. And if you do it poorly, it's going to shorten your health span and lifespan, essentially, both things.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's got to be it's not fun to think about early on, but it needs to be addressed. So
A really good way to practice for when it's your turn is to help people when it happens around you,
that's good.
right? So when you think about Danny's family and when you think about your father-in-law and so on, I mean,
Yeah.
the more that we stay with it and participate in other people's journeys, the more practiced you will be when your time comes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Well, Emma, I really appreciate your time. I
I
think you're
really
doing
appreciate
great
you
work.
having me on. It's pretty cool. This will, I think, will be the first piece that goes out announcing longevity tech. So that's exciting. Thanks for giving us a launch pad.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Love the work you're doing. And
Thank you.
yeah, everyone, thanks for listening and enjoy the rest of your day.